Hey guys, welcome to Breaking Food. At the time of recording this, it was the launch of the iPhone today. I was able to get some cool B-rolls at the Apple Store near me. Actually, so where I work, I'm like just walking distance away from the Apple Store, and so I got to see the watch itself. And what was pretty interesting was the line and the launch, just because I did have an experience of the launch in a way when I used to work for T-Mobile, um, back when the iPhone 13 was launched. And so going from that and then working at a place next to the Apple Store, where you got to see the lines, it's an interesting thing because when I bought my iPhone, I got it from the Apple Store, but I was a different location, and I got it around like October, like the first like within the first 6 days of October. So it was already sort of past the launch day, but it was still a brand new phone. So yeah, let's get into it. So I mean, if you've seen the reviews, I'll upload it before then, because the tech reviewers were able to get the phones in hand before the launch. Y'all can tell it. I mean, there wasn't really much to talk about. Obviously, people already talked about the iOS 18 softwares, which will be rolled out for the previous iPhones. But then for the Apple Intelligence features that was part of the beta by on the 15 Pro Max, and people already talked about that to death. And then just in terms of like hardware features, which is really important when you're actually upgrading to like a newer phone. There isn't really much. Reviews were already talking to death, and was like, if you watched YouTube videos, it's the reviews on the iPhone 16 Plus Pro Max. It's like, oh, okay, same thing as the previous generation. The only difference is the camera placement, the way they did the placement of the cameras for the 16, where instead of diagonal, it's just that, and then just the new feature, the new color combo is more saturated than the previous generation. But then with all the iPhone 16s, including the Pro series, has a dedicated camera button. That's pretty much it. Nothing else about the hardware is any different. But honestly, I mean, what do you really expect? New hardware, I guess, design every single time at this point. Honestly, because I mean, it's not a bad design. It's just what can you really do? Honestly, at this point, I guess the only thing is make by removing the camera hump, you can just increase the thickness of the phone to kind of match the camera hump to add more battery capacity. And have more space to like properly just move around certain things. But I mean, that's pretty much it. Even if you mess around with the camera alignment, or remove the notch slash dynamic island, I mean, really, there's nothing much to add. I guess maybe a touch ID, but even then, it's like at this point, what are you really gonna add? That doesn't exist. Um, Nothing too major. Also, at the same time with the design, what do you really expect a new design every time? Really, I mean, it's gonna be the same functionality. You're not gonna be looking on the back of your phone every time. Really. So yeah, but I guess the camera button is pretty cool. It is the thing when I mean, you can kind of give shortcuts. Like you already can swipe right from the lock screen to access the camera. You can add the shortcuts on the bottom of the lock screen to access the cameras. You can use the shortcuts to kind of quickly launch the camera app, but not just use that as a shutter button, and use the volume buttons as these shutter buttons. Really, we're at a point where like I mean, there's nothing new to add. Even if you add a fingerprint sensor on the phone, underneath the display, or where the on the side of the phone where the power button is, or where the 5G antenna was originally at, or like on the back of the phone. I mean, that's, you can probably do that, but at the point, I mean, at this point, it's like, how many features can you really add, and how much improvement can you really notice also with the improvements on the already set features like the camera quality. I mean, not a lot of people pixel peep, but even when you do, it's like you can hardly notice it. I mean, it's to the point that like if you look at every iPhone announcement, they really send out smart iPhones. Not just, it's not just Apple, but a lot of like smartphone brands will send out their phones. Even previous generations to like photographers, and they take the best photos. They would utilize the phone or just add gears to it. It's like, okay, I can still get good pictures out of the same phones with the same gears. I mean, it's not like the photos are bad. It's nothing like a major upgrade at this point. Um, yeah, honestly, at this point. I mean, it's sort of like kind of movies. Like you have 8K resolution, 10K. But I mean, really, when you're looking at the quality of the image and the resolution, I mean, how much can you really notice the difference, and how does that really affect with the overall experience of stuff? It really is nothing much, right? Essentially. Now, with the Pro and the Pro Max, the microphones are like really improved. Now, I would say it is pretty cool. Uh, if you're like a guy who wants, like a professional type gear, but wants to also upgrade his phone and kind of like just stick with one overall device, the Pro will do a good job. Because of the cool microphone stuff. I mean, you do get the telephoto camera, but also digital zoom is fine. I mean, you can also pick up the moment lens case with that lens, zoom lens, and then use that same lens for like when you upgrade to another smartphone or something like that. Honestly, so you can stick with the 16 and add external mics to better record videos, or yeah, just pick up the baseline 128 GB iPhone 16 Pro. You don't really need the Pro Max, honestly, at that point. So yeah, here's some of the B-rolls I took, honestly, and I'll kind of narrate everything to kind of showcase it essentially for y'all. So you can sort of see with the line, it was really long inside and outside. So this second shot was actually the first shot. So yeah, this was the iPhones itself. I kind of like this light change. You can see I'm messing around with the shutter button. This was my first time holding it and whatnot. It was sort of cool seeing the size. Now the 16 and 16 Plus have the same size as like the previous generation iPhones. And they do have like pretty cool camera. I mean, not camera. I mean, yeah, camera, but cool color combinations. Unlike the Pro phones, which I wish they had better and cooler colors, more vibrant ones. But yeah, it honestly looks cool. To be honest. Now I did like this, this blue purplish color. Yeah, it was surprising. The line was interesting. So when I went to that, I had worked at like 9:30 to like 6:30. I went like when I was dead around that work period hour. There was a line outside. It was like I think 11:30 ish, 11:20 ish. And I was like, okay, yeah, there's a line. Maybe they're helping out customers, setting up the phone, and all of that sort of stuff, and doing trade-ins and whatnot. Obviously, that takes time. Coming from a guy who worked at T-Mobile, I understand. And then because most of these phones are also eSIM, I think the last iPhone to have physical SIM cards was the 13. After that, it was all eSIM. So being able to call your carrier, it's a different process for different carriers, and not just that, people are grading from different phones. So if you have like an iPhone 13 or older, different ways of transitioning to eSIM and just taking time with your data and all that. and from Android it's a separate thing, so I understand. But then when I left work around 6:40, there was still a line, or like it as the lines got short, there was more people getting into the line. And then it was even during the middle of the day when I went for lunch around like 1:30 ish, like no, not 1:30, around closer to 3. There was still a line. People were still inside. It was taking over the street in the mall I was in. Pretty interesting. Um, yeah, and I've experienced the iPhone 13 launch. I was working that day. There wasn't really much of a line or a lot of people coming in for it, which was pretty interesting. I guess it was around the time of COVID 2021 ish, right? And then, yeah, when this came out, obviously, and it's interesting to see because as each iPhones come out, there's less and less of a reason to upgrade for the features. I mean, obviously, yes, I mean, the App Store wasn't, I mean, it was a revolutionary thing, but it was nothing too major, um, until it was getting more apps and all that. And same goes with, I mean, I think the last, like, major stuff to the iPhone happening, it was really the iPhone 10. Yeah, iPhone 10. iPhone 10s was a slight upgrade. I guess you did get the plus size version, which was a major upgrade for people who wanted the bigger size version of the 10. With the 11, I feel like it was almost perfect. Obviously, with later phones, better camera quality, but it was a thing where like the camera got major upgrade with not just 3 cameras, but also the cameras itself was so good. But then because the iPhone 10s was the last iPhone to have that 3D touch technology underneath the display, they removed it, meaning they had more space to put in a bigger battery life, and it was so much better than the 10s. I mean, it was better than obviously the 10s and the 10 iPhones before it, but coming from a guy who went from the 10s, 11 Pro Max, and the 10s Max, 11 Pro Max, and the 12 Pro Max, the 11 had a better battery life, hands down. And I was coming from a guy where I had, it was all the iPhones were hand me down phones, and the OnePlus phones I had before that, the 3 and the 5T, were brand new phones, and the battery life kind of degraded faster. With I guess the 11 Pro Max, which even then it was a hand me down phone from my dad, still had better battery life than the 12 Pro Max. I would say it's even better than this iPhone 15 Pro. Um, and it was the thing where like I was using my iPhone 11 Pro Max a lot more than my 15 Pro, but still I would do it within a single. It would die within a single charge. Compared to this iPhone where I'll have to do 3 charges a day, even though it's a newer phone, newer battery life, better battery life. So yeah, but yeah, just the overall experience, I think it was a fine phone, but I don't think it's really necessary and worth the upgrade. For me, my iPhone 15 Pro is the best phone I have, and I already have my OnePlus phone full. But it's not like I'm doing too much of the Pro stuff. Most people are like, I need the top of the line gray, the gray stuff. Not really. Now, if I did have more storage, or Apple decides to make a cool case for the Pro phones where you get battery charge, just like the previous, like, silicon case the battery silicon case they used to make for the previous iPhones, but do it with like you can insert. It has like an SSD external and make us pay like $100 to $200 for that case. I don't mind paying close to 150 for that case. It would be cool because it uses Type C, and it would be a cool thing for like us users to kind of like have. I wish it was something like that. Because a lot of times, for someone like me that records a lot of stuff, but also does a lot of photography and stays everything onto the phone, I would like to have that because there's times where I like to showcase photos without having to pull it down from the cloud or pull out my SSD or something. Just quick and simple, then and there. So yeah. Now, if you are upgrading to the 16 lineup, which one would I recommend? Now, if you do want the bigger display, I wouldn't suggest for the Pro Max. I would say suggest 16 Plus because it does have the A18 chip, the new chipset for all the iPhone 16 lineups, or 16 phones in the lineup. Um, and they all have amazing cameras, but if you really need a dedicated camera, I would say get the 16 if you could. I mean, because right now the phones just came out, I'm pretty sure some phone carrier stores are trying to get rid of the inventory. I'm pretty sure some of the places are trying to get rid of the iPhone 15 Pro Max phones in their inventory right now. So if you're able to get those on a deal, just pick those up. But if you really need a new phone, I would say the 16 or 16 Plus are like the best options. But if you really need the Pro phones, just get the standard Pro. Just try to get the last year's. Try to see if you can get the last year 15 Pro Max. Other than that, if you want a new phone, plus size phone, 16 Plus is the best option. If you want the Pro, 16 Pro is all the way good. I would say 16 Plus. Best phones, best valued iPhones of all time. That also has a new camera quality, better, obviously the new features and all of that. So yeah, and I would say 256 is good enough. But if you're the type of person to store a lot of things, a lot of photos and videos, also because you are, every time you upgrade, you're not just transferring old photos and that you had captured on that device, but also older ones from like previous phones from like back in the day. I would say 256 is good enough. If you don't want cloud storage and you're going to keep that phone, 512 gigabytes. I think it's good because I think if you get the 16, 512 gigabytes, the price of the 256 Pro phones, and it's the starting price for the Pro Max. So I would suggest, if you want to spend a lot of money on the iPhone, 16 and or 16 Plus, the 512 gigabytes. So yeah, I would say 16 is the way to go. If you do want an older model, you can pick up the refurbished 15 Pro Max or the 14 Pro Max. Better options. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. As always, please stay tuned for more content. Hit the subscribe button, share this video with everyone else. I will do an Apple Watch video because I got to see the Apple Watch Series 10 and the new Apple Watch Ultra 2 color options. So yeah, and then I'll also talk about my experience with iOS 18, not just with the public release, but the betas, including the Apple Intelligence feature, to see if it's worth even upgrading to like a 15 Pro Max if you want to get the older models, or just get the 16 lineup. Because it is worth talking about, because the whole industry is moving to AI, and just stuff AI kind of processor running in the background. So yeah, thank you for watching. As always, please stay tuned. Comment down below if you're upgrading, what kind of phone you have, or your phone situation. So yeah, thank you and stay safe.